Well, just behind me, you can see a live shot picture of what is taking place currently at Ronald Reagan National Airport, just outside of Washington, D.C. There are dozens of rescue crews still on the scene from multiple U.S. agencies, all trying to work together to get to that plane which is in the water, partially submerged, with 60 people on board, plus 4 crew members. And we know that in addition to that, there are 3 military service personnel who are unaccounted for. They were on the helicopter that collided with that plane. The plane was coming in from Wichita, Kansas, arriving about 9 p.m. local time here in Washington, D.C. It's just gone 11 o'clock here in the evening now. And at this stage, it is still unclear the extent of casualties or potentially fatalities. But we have heard from the president, Donald Trump, putting out a statement in the last few minutes saying that he is closely monitoring the situation and saying that he has been fully briefed on what he calls the terrible accident that took place earlier on. He has thanked the emergency crews who are on the scene. But all of this bringing back memories of a fatal air crash 43 years ago, back in 1982, when more than 70 people died when their plane also ended up in the Potomac River that borders the Washington, D.C. airport. So considerable concern at this stage to try and find out exactly what has happened to those people who were on board the plane and the military personnel who were on board the helicopter. But the National Safety Transportation Board saying that they are starting an investigation. The FBI also saying at this stage there is no suggestion that this was a terrorist incident.
Now, Nick, I know details are sketchy at the moment as events are unfolding rapidly. Weather conditions will be a crucial factor in the rescue mission. Temperatures are expected to drop below freezing overnight. How the rescue team, how are they going to handle this situation?
Yeah, incredibly difficult situation. As you can see, it is pitch black tonight. There is no moon in the sky. It is clouded over, and those temperatures, it is just above freezing, but the wind chill factor driving it below freezing. Of course, the water temperatures will be incredibly cold for anyone who has ended up in the Potomac River, and therefore those search and rescue teams who would have had an incredibly difficult job to begin with, all of that being made even harder, their work having to be done at night, in the dark and in freezing conditions. And of course, for anyone that they are trying to find, the fear is that in those freezing temperatures in the water, their chances of surviving are of course diminished.
Nick, this weather plane has come down in the Potomac River. Do we have any indication as to whether this was very close to the airport, as in the plane was coming into land and the helicopter was taking off? Or did this happen further into the town? Because the Potomac River obviously runs right the way up through Washington, D.C.
It does. It snakes through the nation's capital, and this airport is notoriously difficult to fly into, and I've flown into it many times, and you have to bank quite sharply around several tall buildings to get in line for the actual runway. We believe that the aircraft was making its final approach, that it was coming in to one of the runways. The Federal Aviation Administration saying that it was on approach for runway 33 at the time. That collision therefore taking place around the runway rather than further into the Capitol itself, nearer to buildings, nearer to the White House, even nearer to the Pentagon, which is less than half a mile from Ronald Reagan Airport.
Now, Nick, do we know anything about the pilots?
No word at this stage about the pilots who were on board, exactly what their age or their condition was, or whether they are casualties in this actual crash. We do know that it was an American Airlines plane, though, that was flying from Wichita, Kansas, a flight of about 2.5, nearly 3 hours into Washington, D.C. But many of those details, I guess, will be coming out in the coming hours. But at this stage, the exact age, the nature of the pilots and those other crew members, 4 in total, on board that plane that was carrying 60 passengers.
Now, Nick, was there an accidental scenario that stands up to scrutiny?
In terms of this flight, it's unclear, but the fact that the FBI is saying that this was not a terrorist-related incident, also telling one US news media outlet there was also no indication of criminality, the suggestion, therefore, is that this was purely accidental. It could well be the case that the pilots who were coming in on this difficult approach to the runway had their eyes firmly on the situation ahead as they were trying to land and simply didn't see that helicopter that was also in the area at the time.